about to go in. I run it up in there. Right, kinda on it. What? Nigga. Shit so fucking hard, hey. What? She said, I was swerving and the fag, got the serving and the fab out the pen. Now we need to work around the platform and trip around the tag, nigga serving and the spell, trying to pen. I love my nigga.
This live stream may contain content that could be perceived as shocking or offensive, but it is presented solely for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. We strive to adhere to community guidelines, and any potentially sensitive material is shared with the intent of fostering understanding and learning.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. I want to welcome you guys to tonight's live stream. Today, we're going to be talking to a subscriber that has been extremely vocal on my page, very, very much a supporter of what we're doing, the movement itself, the platform. She has been extremely helpful. She has also offered a lot of encouragement. You guys that are following this channel, you know that my wife has gone through a very traumatic situation in the last month or so, and this subscriber has been very just an absolute godsend in terms of reaching out, asking about my wife, making sure that she's doing okay. So it gave me this thought, this opportunity presents itself where I can get her perspective on what it's like being a female in the security industry, and just kind of, you know, her thoughts on the platform, her thoughts on the industry. She lives in the great state of Rhode Island, so maybe we'll ask her some questions about their wonky gun control laws up there. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Miss Monique. How are you?
Hi, good to see everybody. God bless you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my first question to you before we go any further, you told me that you just turned 60.
Yes,
and you know, you are all the way on the far East Coast. How on earth did you find this security channel? I got to know this.
Okay, well, I love to do research. How's that? I just love to do research.
Okay.
And years ago, I did work for Pinkerton and was originally trained by them.
Okay.
And that was, let's see, the years of 1999, 2000, 2001. In 2002, I was living up in Boston at that time. My father said, "Oh, Monique, you need to move home and help take care of mom because she ended up with Alzheimer's disease."
Oh no.
Oh no. So I moved back home to Newport, Rhode Island, and to help with my brother, Paul, my oldest brother, Conrad, my dad, his name was Joseph or Joe, and mom's name was Mary Alice Lemaire. And basically, you know, if it's family, you have to say put family first, right?
100%.
Always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always put family first. And so guess what? In the spring of, I think it was 2002, my brother's sitting over here now. It was March of 2002. Paul drove his little minivan or whatever he had at the time. It was a Suzuki. So he helped move me down. I had a moving company help move me and my piano down. And I've been here since then. But I've always loved doing security. And
Okay.
Pinkerton was excellent. But here's the thing. When I moved down to Rhode Island, they wanted to station me in Central Falls, which is a very inner city, tough neighborhood.
Okay.
And instead of getting paid, like at that time, $12 or $13 an hour, they said, "Okay, lady, I'll put you down there for $8 an hour."
Oh my gosh.
I'll just teach piano lessons. Thank you.
Well, Monique, how did you come across my security channel though? So like, you know, I on the back end of my platform, I can see my demographic. And my demographic is American men between the ages of 18 and 35. So how on earth did you find my platform and get to a point where you're commenting on my post and reaching out to me via email, checking on my wife? How did you find my platform?
Well, again, research. And what's the second largest search engine in the world is YouTube.
That's correct.
Right. And in the future, I want to be on YouTube with my different variety of ministries and teachings and whatnot.
Okay.
So when I got to security, the key word is what? security, because you are the security guard channel.
Okay.
Words, very important.
Very important. Yes,
Then,
ma'am.
basically, as I just before we started this, I just watched the video that said how you were going back to school, and then
Yep.
in May you'll be getting your bachelor's degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. That's very
you.
important.
Well, you were telling me that, you know, before we came on the air here, you were talking about your degrees. You have quite a few different degrees. You even have a master's degree.
I'm working on that one. I haven't finished yet.
but that speaks to kind of the thought of where I'm going with this. You know, the idea of people that work in security, and you were telling me your past history, and we'll go into that with working in private security, but this thought process around people that make up the workforce of security, the general perception is that we're uneducated, you know, that we, you know, are doing this job because we can't do something else. You know, like you said, I'll be getting my degree here in May, and you've got quite a few different degrees. So, you know, what is it about you having those, the access to those degrees and the ability to do other work? What is it that drew you into private security?
Well, I'm a single Christian woman, so I never did find a proper husband to have my 2 kids. Always wanted that, but God didn't bless that. And that's okay, because as the Bible says, as a single Christian person, we can actually do more for the Lord than as a married person.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. You know, I think of, if you don't mind me sharing a little bit of a family story.
No, go ahead.
Okay. My father, before he met Mom, and she was, you know, pretty lady with the nice gams, as they used to say. He studied to be a priest in seminary up in Montreal. His older sister was named Florence.
Okay.
Now, she wasn't a security person. She was a sister. Her ordered her to go back to France during World War II. So here she is in the convent, and it's about midnight. She'd hop on a horse or a donkey, take her medical bag, and go to the front lines and basically minister and do all kinds of medical work on their bodies. And then she'd hop back onto the horse, go back to the convent, and just pretend, oh, how are you doing? God bless you. Nice to see you. Not really even wanting or needing to tell anything of what she did. So you might say that was what? Not covert. It was
Undercover security work.
Undercover security in a sense, but undercover being a medic.
Okay.
And her mother did something similar in the city of Fall River, Massachusetts, with the men at the big mills, if you remember the Industrial Revolution and all that.
Okay.
So it sort of runs in the family that, and I think it's a typical female thing too, is you want to take care of. You want to take care of. So whether I'm taking care of a job site in Billerica, Massachusetts, and now that job site that used to be full of holes that were like, they put the concrete in for the foundation. And now if you go to that site in Billerica, Massachusetts, huge tall buildings there. And it's like, yep, I work there. When it's a dirt hole.
when you were working for Allied Universal, I'm assuming it was Allied Barton back then, right?
No, actually, I worked for Allied in the year of 2021.
Okay, now when you were working for Allied in 2021, was that in Rhode Island or was that in Massachusetts?
That was in Rhode Island, and it was okay. But basically, the local manager he didn't get it together. He wasn't good at scheduling, and it didn't work out. And that's the time where I told you a little earlier before we got on live here is I got very sick.
Yeah.
So my last day of work was July 3rd. July 4th was a Sunday. I called that manager on Monday, July 5th, and said, I'm sorry, I just cannot work anymore. Because when you have myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome, you end up in bed, and some people with this disease end up in bed the rest of their life.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that you're dealing with that. I do want to ask you, when you were working private security and you're working these unarmed posts, and then you know, your words, you're a little bit older, right? You're female.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you're working these positions unarmed, right?
Yes, sir.
How did you handle situations where, you know, you're the forward facing figure that people are interacting with in a security capacity? How do you project enough? I don't know the right word to use here, but like, how do you project enough authority to where you're able to get compliance from people? How did you handle those situations where, you know, you're talking about being in control or manning a site that's maybe a construction site, people that are wanting to gain access to that, people that might be trespassing or people that are, you know, loitering? How did you handle situations where you're in that position where you're the authority figure?
Well, it's interesting what my name means. Monique means to encourage, to warn, to advise. So you bet if you need a warning, I'm going to give you a warning, buddy. My last name, Lemaire, means the mayor or the magistrate, or guess what? The manager. Oh, interesting. God gives us our names and they mean something. So, you know, I'd make sure that I was dressed in my uniform. I always look good. I have long hair, so I'd always ask for a cap. If I could just put my hair back in a cap. I wouldn't wear it like yours. That'd be backwards.
You know, hey, Monique, before you go any further, I want to say this. A lot of people assume that when I work that I wear my hat backwards. There's no way that I could get away with that. I would never do that on the job.
Right.
Yeah, but so I've had people make comments, you know, a lot of my earlier videos, I have my hat backwards in the video. And the reason for that, people are like, oh, you're trying to be super cool. You got your hat backwards and you look like a gangster or a thug. And the reason why I would do that, I would shoot my videos when I first started making YouTube videos in the garage of my apartment complex. So when I would come home and park my vehicle, I would immediately get out in my uniform and shoot my video. The company that I worked for was written on the front of the hat. And so I was doing everything I could at the time to not have my patches that would show in the video or have my hat show in the video, but I wanted to have my hat on. You know, I didn't want anyone to think that I was speaking for the company or as a representative of the company. So that's the only reason why I was wearing my hat backwards. And then, you know,
that's cute.
If I wear my hat forward in the videos on here, you can't see my eyes and it creates a shadow. So I've learned that in order to get a better view, I have to have a hat on because I'm starting to go a little bit bald. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting older, you know.
I understand.
So yeah, a lot of people just have this misconception that I wear my hat backwards because I'm, you know, that I do that at work. I would never do that at work. Did you ever have situations where you were threatened or you were put in a position where you had to fear for your safety when you're working security?
No, I always felt pretty safe. Some positions with Pinkerton were either, I guess we call it corporate security. And I think this company is still around the world. It's called Avaya. At one point, Avaya Incorporated had a big building on or near Route 2 in Concord, Massachusetts. So that position was more of a reception security position. So I'd have to put on my blazer and the gray slacks and, you know, I wouldn't put a lot of makeup on, but, you know, I'd have to look professional. And then that position was more, yes, you have an afternoon appointment at 2:00 with Mr. Smith. I need to see your ID, please.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he knows me. It's like, no, I don't see you on here. I need to see your ID and I need to see your corporate ID too, because you're not going past there unless I see all this. And if you make a fuss, then I'll call my supervisor.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of vocal.
Do you feel like when you're in a situation, and I want to say this with the most tact and respect that I can, do you feel that when you're in a situation where you're a female, maybe you're an older female, do you feel that you have to project more empathy in situations or reach people from more of a communication standpoint than maybe someone like myself or younger, more virile, like, you know, male security guards?
Right.
You see that there's a different approach that that someone like you would take than most security guards take in those situations?
There's always a different approach. So for me, as I'm 60 now, I don't think I'm old, but I guess I am. So, for me, it's always, and as a Christian person too, you love one another. You love on that person. Oh, you're not doing wrong. Hey, do you know the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not steal. And I'll just put it right to them.
Yeah.
So I speak the truth. I attempt to speak the truth in love, but here's the thing. Every human being has a conscience and they have the 10 Commandments written on their heart. Just read Romans 2.
Monique, do you feel that no matter how hardened a person is, that they have an ingrained response to a motherly figure? I've seen this. I think that I've seen women in your position, your stature, your demeanor that have been able to get compliance from some of the most dangerous people. And I think that that's something that's often lost. We tend to look at law enforcement. We tend to look at military affairs. We tend to look at security. And, the stick is always what we tend to lean towards, right? Because that's easy. It's easy to grab somebody and force them to do what it is that you want them to do. It's easy to threaten someone with some sort of harm or some sort of, confinement. But there is something about a motherly figure that, just in talking to you now, you've put me at ease, you've made me relaxed, and I'm smiling. I'm not trying to be, cool or aggressive. I think that we often forget what a great benefit people like you can be in de-escalating situations. Have you ever had conversations with fellow security guards or people in your environment where you're like, hey, let me take point on this so it doesn't have to go to a more aggressive situation? Have you ever been in that kind of a position?
No, but the opposite I have been in for 12 years. I was a volunteer chaplain at the Massachusetts Treatment Center in Bridgewater. That prison is a medium security prison. I was a volunteer chaplain, and all the men were all sex offenders.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now I would go in and say, God loves you, whether you like it or not. And they all be like, oh, really? Yes. And then a fellow said, do I need to forgive my family member? I said, well, if you don't forgive, God won't forgive you. Just look at Matthew chapter 6, verses, I think it's 13 and 14. So we have to bring everybody down to this human level. In that, yeah, we're all humans. Even the great Pearl Bailey, remember her? Great jazz singer.
Who was Pearl Bailey?
Pearl Bailey, what a beautiful voice. She was asked one time, she was a black sister, if I can use that expression.
Absolutely.
Someone asked her, well, do you believe, and this was during the 50s, 60s, when all the racial tension was just starting.
Yeah.
And Pearl Bailey said back to the person questioning her, well, did you realize there's only one race? It's called the human race.
I like that.
And when people realize that, it doesn't matter if I'm white and I'm sitting here in little old Rhode Island, or you're a black gentleman sitting up in, is it Oregon?
Portland, Oregon.
Yes. You know what? Guess what? Do you love Jesus? I think you do.
I do, absolutely.
Amen. I love Jesus. God is our Father. So guess what? Whether you like it or not, I am your sister in the Lord.
100%. Absolutely.
Amen. So that's the whole thing, is in different situations, that's how you can de-escalate certain situations, is you have to find the common ground. Well, the common ground is, hey, we're all humans. We're all created. Okay. We have a creator who's our Father. And if we love Jesus, he's the best big brother you'll ever have.
Monique, I wanted to ask you about firearms. Have you ever thought of maybe getting your arms certification? Have you ever thought about having a firearm for personal protection? What are your thoughts on firearms?
Well, I'm all for the Constitution, believe me.
Okay.
I think every state should have constitutional carry. How's that?
I love it.
The state's rights.
Have you had any thoughts of running for president by any chance?
I I've had one person years ago. I've done a lot of volunteering in my life. I volunteered to be the chairperson for the Constitution Party here in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So it's not the biggest party anymore. It used to be the third largest party by voter registration in the U.S. So I volunteered for that. And at least when I was the chairperson, we had at least hundreds more vote Constitution Party here in Rhode Island. Getting back to the guns.
Okay.
Now, at one point, now I am a single Christian woman, and I have thought many times maybe I just need a small firearm that I could hold in my hand to be safe.
Okay.
Again, thou shalt not kill. But sometimes you just need to feel safe. So I did go to a local gun shop, looked at some of the guns. I haven't made a ton of money recently, so they're a little expensive. Maybe the minimum is $300 or $400.
Yeah.
And then taking lessons for shooting, that would be fine. It's just like I give piano lessons. That's middle C, okay? You need to learn the basics. So, fine. That's good. And yes, as my brother Paul would often say, if we had every person here in America carrying a gun, we would be the safest place in the entire world.
Absolutely. I cannot agree with that any more than I already do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So thank you, Brother Paul. So
well, Monique, moving forward, if you have any questions about firearms, I'd be more than happy to help you with that. You clearly have my email address. You can reach out to me at any given time. And I would love to help walk you down that path towards your future journey of being a firearms owner. And what was it about working in security? I'd love to ask you this. What was it about working in security that you never felt the need, or maybe you did? Did you ever feel the need to have a firearm working in security, or did you feel completely comfortable in the situations that you were working in?
I'm a pretty, in a sense, laid back person, or I attempt to be. And I trust my God. I trust that he's given me skills and talents and whatnot. But I also trust that no one can harm me. I trust that. Now, if someone wants to kill me, that's okay. I'd end up in heaven sooner. So I don't fear death. And as far as using a firearm, well, yes, I would need the training, and we all need training in that. Mm-hmm. All of us. I was proud of one of my piano students recently. His father is studying for his master's degree here in Newport at the Naval War College.
Oh, wow.
Guess what his son got for Christmas? A small rifle.
Okay.
Not just a BB gun, it's an actual rifle. And Scott wanted to show, hey, Miss Monique, you want to see my new rifle? It's like, well, not right now. We're do our piano lesson first.
Yeah.
But again, it has to be respect for the instrument, for the gun, has to be absolute respect for one another. And that's the thing in our society that we don't have anymore.
That is true.
Don't have respect, period. It's hard.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Let me ask you a question that's a little bit deeper and maybe not necessarily on the topic of security, but, I think that if I were to take a guess, I would say that you would say the presence of Christ in people's life, that would be the biggest issue. But I want to put you on the spot and have you explore a little bit more critical thinking. So if that's not the answer that I want you to give, because I believe that would be the answer that you would give. Mm-hmm. What do you think has been the biggest change over the last 25 years that has led to such a shift in how people relate to each other, how they interact with each other? And that can be in terms of how, the criminal element has changed, but also just how people are in general. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of meanness and hate that's out there right now. Why do you think that is?
Well, I point the finger, if you don't mind me saying that, at our baby boomer generation.
Okay.
I'm a young baby boomer. Okay. And most of that generation really hasn't taught their kids proper ethics. I'll use that word, right and wrong.
Simple courtesy.
Simple courtesy.
Yeah.
How do you do? It's nice to see you. Have a pleasant day. God bless you. That's simple. But how about, and I don't want to get too political, but it's just simply the family is broken. That's evident. Where do we have a family that has a mom, a dad, and the 2.3 kids?
Yeah.
And those 2.3 kids, that's the statistic, have no fear of God, and they have no fear of their parents.
Yeah.
And that's important. Why? I could tell you the story of the red crayon. When I was 2 years old, I had a wonderful red crayon, and I was drawing on the wallpaper at the house in LeMay Street in West Hartford, Connecticut. And Dad saw me drawing with the big red crayon, and my mom freaked out. Mom never spanked anybody, but Dad came over. He made his sort of face and that sort of noise he would make. He'd go, "Arr." And if you heard that noise come out of Dad's mouth, you got a good spanking.
Yeah.
And we don't have that anymore. Oh, I don't want to spank my child. Well, you know what? The proverb says, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child.
Absolutely.
Yes, and my brother Paul just quoted Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
You
And
know, I
fools
like to.
do
Hey,
not like that.
let
Proverbs,
me pause you there. Say that
Yes.
one more time. What is it again?
Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge.
Mm.
And it goes on, talks about how a fool doesn't like to be educated. That's a paraphrase, but I could.
Well, I want to lean into what you said. You know, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And, you know, right now, we have no fear of accountability in terms of our justice system, especially here in
correct.
Portland, you know.
The
So-
entire criminal justice system, yes. And even the prison system needs to be completely reformed.
Yeah. You know, absent any sort of accountability, people have no desire to do the right thing, you know, because ultimately there's nothing there for them. Man, that's a very interesting thought. Yeah, I like that.
Here's the whole thing, if you want. It's from the New International Version.
Okay.
Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline.
Despise wisdom and discipline.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. You know, I was going to say, Monique, that, you know, I'm a little bit older. I'm 45. I'll be 46 this year.
Oh.
And I have found that the basics of decorum, right? So I was in the military. Hey, Paul, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah. I
Go on.
I spent 6 years in the military, and you know, decorum is a major aspect of that. How you relate to people, how you speak to people. That's the very first thing that you learn when you get into the military. How to respond to someone speaking to you, and how to speak to those that are in front of you. And I find that that's so interesting, because that's the basis of any interaction with someone, is that communication. And communication starts with respect and how you are talking to someone from the first thing that you say. You know, we have been put in a position at the location where I work, where in order to combat theft and combat some of the problems that we've had here in Portland, the retail store that I work at, they've gone to a receipt check system. Sorry. And by doing this receipt check system, they have us interacting with every single customer as they enter the store or they exit the store. Now, this has been something that was met with a lot of contention, a lot of issues, you know, of personal property rights, of, you know, maybe even search and seizure. And so right at the very onset of this, it was a major issue. It made news locally. It made national news. But just in having interaction with people who are coming up to the door and they're already in a negative space. And that's not even taking into account how people feel about private security as it is, right? You're adding this potential invasion of privacy on top of that. But I just started thinking to myself, you can disarm a lot of negative interactions with people by having a ounce of decorum. And right now, you know, we have gotten to this place where it's so out of the realm of normalcy to say, good afternoon, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Right? Because you don't want to misgender someone. You don't want to say the wrong thing. But for the most part, most people respond so well to that. When they come up to exit the store and you look at them and you look them in the eye and you say, hello, sir, thanks for coming in today. May I please see your receipt? Most people never hear that type of decorum, that type of respectful interaction. And you can see people where they literally relax and they go, absolutely. Even if they don't appreciate the potential intrusion, it's like by you offering this level of respect at the very beginning of the interaction, that person goes, I've even heard people say it. You know what? I don't appreciate this. I don't agree with it, but you're just here to do a job. Yeah, absolutely. Here you go. You have a good day, sir. And it all comes from just offering that respect at the very onset of the interaction, you know, and that's so powerful. I think that if I could get a small percentage of security guards on this platform to understand how powerful truly offering respect to people is, you know, that would be everything. And I would feel, you know, vindicated and even trying to do this. I've heard a lot of people now from the younger generation. They're like, hey, it's not our job to have conversations with people. It's not our job to interact with people. We're there for protection. We're not there to be customer service agents. No, you are. Because the more you can do that in the peripheral of a situation before it happens, the less you have to lean on the stick when you get to that point. I've had conversations where people have walked in through the door, and as they're walking in, hello, sir. Thank you for coming in. Glad you're here. And then that person 10 minutes later is having an argument at customer service. And now when we respond to that situation at customer service, and this is now a potentially negative situation, I'm the guy who's walking up with the gun and the vest, but I'm also the guy who said, welcome to the store, sir. Glad you're here today. I hope you have a great day. And there's a difference in the way that we interact now going forward. You know what I mean? I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah. Now, I work 2 days a week at a crazy department store. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's one manager there who prides himself. He's been there for 30 years or something. He's like graduated high school, started at the store, and he's been there forever. I gave him a congratulations note to say, hey, congratulations on your years here. And here's a business book that I think you might enjoy reading. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what the book was? By Dale Carnegie.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Exactly. Now, the other night, as I was working, actually it was just last night, he was there, I was there. And I said, hey, did you ever read that book? He said, no, I threw it away. That one little book has influenced 100 years, a whole century of business. And absolutely. Guess what? People I like to watch, not that I watch it all the time, but a husband and wife, Alex and Layla Hormozi.
Okay. Yeah, I know who that is.
All right. So yeah. Layla will give lessons to the women in business, and she's very good. And she says, these are my top 5 books for business. And guess what was in her top 5?
Always. Absolutely.
How to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
Now, the main idea of that book is you treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And she said, the big thing I got out of that book was this. I need to be very encouraging to my team. There's that word again, encouragement. What does my name mean? And one thing my mom always taught me, she was a school teacher. She taught Latin, French, Spanish, English, but she would say, if there's someone that you have a hard time dealing with, then you kill them with kindness.
Yeah. That's hard to do nowadays.
It is, but when I see that particular manager, I'll say, good morning, sir. How do you do? Nice to see you today. How's it going? Have a good day, ma'am. Thanks for shopping here. Have a cheap day.
Yeah. I was listening to, I don't know if you're aware of who he is, but Gary Vaynerchuk. And he was talking to his team. This was so profound. And he was saying that he had 4 or 5 team members, and there was a small amount of infighting. I don't think that he allows it to ever get out of control, but there was clearly an issue because he had 4 of his team members in the same office, and he was talking to them about how they respond to criticism. And the one person said something to the effect that, one of the other team members was basically, I don't want to say being too harsh, but unsubstantiated criticism, right? And Gary Vaynerchuk said, he said like the dark, I'll just say it like this: the dark energy way of dealing with something is to look at someone who criticizes you and pick apart where they're wrong. He was like, what I want you guys to start doing is when someone criticizes you and you know that it's coming from a bad place, I want you to shift your focus on not what they're saying about you. Don't internalize it about you, but think for a second what they must be going through that's putting them in that position. He was like, when you start looking at it from a position of empathy, like this person is lashing out, this person is clearly doing something or saying something because, they're going through something, and how can I help in this moment? He was like, if we can all in this room get to the point where we're looking at it from that perspective, Bob is coming at me the wrong way in this meeting, and instead of me getting upset and having an issue with Bob that leads to us not being able to close this deal, how can I look at what Bob is dealing with and find a way to help Bob? And he was like, and that's a very difficult way of doing things, because when you're being personally attacked, that becomes your focus, right? And so that's something that I had just heard that. And then I dealt with this situation with this guy the other day where he's lashing out, and there was no reason for him to have been so aggressive and want to fight and get into the direction that he was going. And he didn't seem like he was high. Sometimes when people are high, you're like, okay, this person's high. It is what it is. But when a seemingly normal person is responding that way, sometimes you're just like, where is this coming from? And it's very easy for me to have people challenge me in certain ways at work. And sometimes I can get to a point where I'm like, okay, if this is what you want, I can prove to you that you're making the wrong decision. But that doesn't solve anything, and that doesn't help the contract, and that doesn't help the image of security. So I had just listened to that thing with Gary Vaynerchuk, and I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Look at this guy from where he's coming from, and maybe he's dealing with something right now, and tried to offer him that grace and give him an out. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm rambling about that, but that's a very good point, because somewhere in scripture,
I think it is Jesus himself that says you need to love your enemies.
Yeah.
You need to just love your enemies. You need to forgive. See where they're at. Start with whatever the baseline is and go from there. And then encourage and encourage and encourage.
Monique, what would be your advice to people who want to get into private security? If someone right now is like, you know what, I think I'm going to try this security thing out, what would be your top 2 pieces of advice that you would give them?
That's a very good question. I think the top 2 would be think a lot.
Okay.
And as you're thinking, take a piece of paper and a pen and just write down all your character qualities. Make a list. Do your characteristics, of your person, do they coincide with security? Yes or no? Do you get afraid easily? If you do, don't bother. Now, it wasn't a tough post or position. Near Boston, there is a psychiatric hospital called McLean Hospital. So
Okay.
just even walk into there is a little unnerving.
Yeah.
So when I was with Pinkerton, I was working midnight to 8 in the morning
At the hospital?
at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
I was guarding a door, and behind that door was another door. And behind that door was a man who he bludgeoned his wife to death with a hatchet. So I was a little freaked out, but it's just sort of like, all right, he's just another human being.
Uh-huh.
And okay, he bludgeoned his wife with a hatchet. Sounds a little bit like who is the lady in Fall River?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, years and years ago, there was a woman in Fall River, Massachusetts, who bludgeoned her husband with a hatchet. And I'm laughing, but it's just, we're all human beings. So
Yeah.
again, getting back to your question, see what your character, what is your character? And here's another thing. Do you care? Do you really care? Do you care to take care of people and things? So in your position at a store, do you care about the customers walking in? Hi, nice to see you today. Have fun shopping. And you're there with your security vest on and maybe your sidearm, or, you're looking tough. But if coming out of your mouth says, have fun shopping, they're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, have fun shopping. We're here to serve you. So yes, customer service is imperative in security.
100%.
And acting the right way, having, yes, manners. Wow, what a novel
What a
idea.
novel concept, right?
Yes. But like you said earlier, Damien, it's those little things that make the difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm at my crazy department store, I know some of the customers and they speak different foreign languages.
Okay.
Now, I know my English. I listened to French growing up all my life. So if I can parlez-vous français un petit peu avec toi, monsieur, I do that. Or if someone's Spanish, I say, hola. I don't remember all the Spanish. Vaya con Dios. Go with God.
Que tenga buen día, señor.
Yeah. Just something little like that. And they're like,
Yeah.
and they smile.
Yeah. The things that separate a positive experience from a negative experience, a potentially dangerous situation from one that's able to be de-escalated, it's such a small amount of effort on either side,
Yes.
and you can't always bank on the person who's potentially causing the problem to be the one who's going to give that effort. So,
That's correct.
security guards are in a great position if they understand what we're talking about. And you know what? Maybe that'll be my final question to you, Monique. Like, we're talking about things that used to be standard: manners, respect, decorum, empathy, a little extra effort, customer service, all of the things that are, so missing from our environment right now. How do we make this something that's appealing to security guards? Because I'm going to tell you right now, listen, if I was having a conversation right now with a firearms instructor, if I was talking to a jujitsu expert, we would have a lot more participation. That video would probably get a lot more views. It's something that's easier and more digestible to the common masses. How do we get this message of what you and I are discussing right now to be something that security guards lean into? How do we make them think that this is something that they need to do?
Well, security is necessary, especially in the time that we're living in. It's getting more necessary. If you go to your local public school now, the doors are locked. You have to buzz yourself in. And if they don't know you, oh, who are you? So security in a school, security for a family. Where I live, it's either rich or poor, and that's sort of how our nation has gone anyway.
Yeah.
So those rich people need security. Definitely. A poor neighborhood in Newport or Providence or whatever, they need security. The children need encouragement. Young men and women need encouragement. We all need encouragement. And then again, back to security is, I was always taught this as a young person, and especially when I became a Christian, I'll put it that way. So you need to see needs and meet them. The security personnel has a need already. They don't have the need. They're trying to meet the need. They need to see the need and meet it. What's the need as there's guarding a warehouse? What's the need? Okay, my very last day with Allied Universal, I was guarding a warehouse in Fall River, Massachusetts. I had a 13-hour shift. There was nobody there. It was raining. It was dismal, horrid. Yeah. But I still did my rounds inside. I didn't have to do rounds outside. I was thankful because it was just drenching rain that day. But what's the need? Okay, I'm here to guard this place, and I'm here to make a good, thorough report. And the report's not just going to say, okay, it's 9:00 at night. All is fine, period. No. Details, please. What has changed? Is there anything that's changed?
Well, how do we get people who are working in that capacity, though,
to care
enough to make respect and customer service a part of what they're doing?
Professional training.
Yeah, it is professional training, but again, it boils down to not only just training, it boils down to heart.
Fear of the Lord.
And yeah, what we talked about earlier, the fear of the Lord.
Paul's back there dropping gems.
That's Paul's okay. But it all boils down to heart. You know, when I go to Portland, Oregon, if you and your wife needed help, I might need a little help with money to get there. But let's say if indeed your wife needed someone just to be there for her, I'd be happy to go.
Yeah. Is that something that can be taught? I had a person.
Yes and no.
I had a person that just commented and said, you can't teach that. You can't teach it. You can't mandate it. You can't train it. You know, people either have it or they don't. Do you believe that? Do you believe that it's something that's ingrained in people?
Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a story about a man who was in prison.
Okay.
For years. Sorry, I just drew a blank.
Nelson Mandela?
Nope. Who's the rapist and the killer?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember his name either.
Fellow, he raped men, killed them, and then ate them.
Lee, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes, thank you. Jeffrey Dahmer.
All right.
A little old lady in North Carolina sent Jeffrey Dahmer some Bible tracts, if you will.
Okay.
He got very interested and he ate them up, not literally, but he would study and he studied.
Did you say that on purpose or was that just a Freudian slip?
That was just a little flip. Sorry.
All right, continue. All right, continue.
So he got into reading the Bible, and then a local minister that was near there, and then the little old lady called the minister. He studied the Bible with Jeffrey Dahmer. Wow. He repented. He repented of his sin. He could understand what he had done. He had understood what he needed to do to be right with God. And Jeffrey Dahmer was baptized in a prison because he repented. He came to faith. We're baptized. God gives us the gift of the Holy Spirit. So yes, it's possible for any human being It's called repentance, to turn to God and to change. And you know what the modern word for that is? 2 words: neurotheology and neuroplasticity.
Okay. I have studied both of those because I am in a theological class at Liberty University.
Beautiful.
Yes, they are required.
That's good.
You know, I think that I have learned what, you know, I think that it's a 50-50 shot. I would say that what you're saying is that anyone, even the worst of us, can learn if we're willing,
Exactly.
and that it's up to us to let me think about
Love
this.
and courage, love and discipline.
Monique, I think that the where I had a subscriber that just commented and said that you can't teach it. I think that that's true in a way. But for security, one of the lessons that I would like for everyone to leave with tonight, and I was going to make a separate video about this. We have to get away from trying to be tied to the outcome. You know, from a biblical sense, God says for us to plant the seeds. He doesn't say for us to reap the seeds or to reap the crop.
Mhm.
We're to plant the seeds, right? I think in security and when it comes to training other officers, what I have tried to do with this platform is just share the information. It's not my place to make sure that someone digests it. It's not my place to make sure that someone, you know, goes out and does what I have, you know, tried to teach or tried to share. God's put it on my heart to share the information, and then what they do with that is out of my hands. So maybe the message is that in terms of helping people to understand how important it is to be good, solid customer service agents, good people in terms of interacting with people and having that decorum and that respect. We just tell people, we say, hey, look, man, this is a good way to do it. And then I've seen great benefit in doing this. But then if they choose to not do it, that's on them, you know, kind of absolve ourselves of that responsibility of the result and just share with them what we've learned and what we've done. Right. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Well, Monique, let me ask you this before I get you out of here. Do you have any questions for me? Do you want to ask me anything? You have my undivided attention.
I didn't think about that, but maybe I could email you or
No. There's no email. I'm putting you on the spot. You have to ask me a question before you leave. You have to.
Okay, I will ask this question and your opinion.
Okay.
Now, you met my brother Paul just a little while ago. It was
I met
about
him yesterday, actually.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead.
So Paul and I have been talking about this idea of a new type of security personnel.
Okay.
They would be trained security, and I've contacted the International Foundation of Protection Officers. So when I finish with my schooling, I will then go to school with them and learn, I think they call it the Professional Security Officer, PSO, and then I'll go through the management training, and then I'll go through the instructor training.
Okay.
That's for a purpose. So it would be a person, male or female, trained in 3 disciplines: security, being an EMT, and that those 2 tend to go together, and also being a chaplain.
Okay.
Because there are some situations where a person needs to be, using the term, de-escalated, right?
Okay.
Bring them down. Okay. Talk to them, counsel them, advise them, you know, try to encourage. I say that word a lot, but
Okay.
just people, they need the counseling immediately.
Okay.
So if you were to look at a page I have on one of our websites, I've named it already. It's called The Sword, our protection and safety service.
Okay.
Ministry. And I've looked into getting this done here in Rhode Island. It would cost me $400 for 2 years license and the insurance. Then I could run it as a one-person security company. So it would be, again, trained in security, trained in EMT, trained as a chaplain. Why? That person could de-escalate a situation. they could provide the security needed and any kind of medical needed. So let's say you're guarding a fancy house in Newport and you're serving a family. Well, something happens in the family, there's an argument, and well, you know how to de-escalate and talk, you know how to counsel them because you have clinical pastoral education.
Mhm.
And if something happens that someone is hurt, what if the woman of the house takes a chair and knocks her husband over? Oh, he needs some help medically now.
Okay.
The whole situation needs help. So would you what is your thought on this chaplain, protector, medic?
Okay. So the question is, what do I think of that cross training for security guards, having them trained in those three things?
Yes.
I think it's awesome.
Okay.
Now the question comes into, are you only going to have people in this capacity that are Christian? Because if you're working as a security guard, just take you or me. You're working for a company that's guarding a construction site. I'm working at a grocery store, where I'm working at a shopping mall. When we're working in the capacity of a security guard or the capacity of an EMT, our religious faith doesn't necessarily become front facing, right? So if you were in a situation where you are now offering security guards from a Christian standpoint, does that somehow cause a problem potentially if you're dealing with an issue and the person that you're dealing with is Jewish or the person that you're dealing with is Muslim? Does that, having that be a forward facing aspect of your company, does that become problematic? Would be the question.
Not at all. Because our idea would be train up the person, and then I have the knowledge to teach them. You could either make it a small business or ministry. And each chaplain, protector, medic would have their own small company.
Oh, so wait. So what you're saying is that your job, the business model that you want to make is to help create people that do this, but then they go forth and they create their own companies, and they can do that in whichever realm they want.
Exactly.
So your religious component can be accomplished by each individual business owner with their specific faith.
And whether someone is a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, guess what? All three of those religions, I don't like the word religion, they all come from the Bible. Wow, that's amazing. Judaism is the foundation of Christianity, and the Muslim religion came about around the year 600 AD.
That would be a different podcast that we should probably
I understand, but
steer away from at the moment. But yes, I think that it's an interesting model, and I think that Monique, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that we are approaching times right now
where we need
where we are going to have to start relying on faith a lot more than we have been over the last 50 or 60 years, because I think that we are in for some really bad times in the next, I want to say 5 to 10 years, but unfortunately, I think it's going to all kick off around election time this year. I think that we're in for some bad times, and people are going to have to start coming to terms with their faith and where they're at, what they believe in, who they're going to lean on, because that's going to become more important. So you have been a breath of fresh air, and this is a much different conversation than I have generally, but I'm very happy to have spoken to you. I really do appreciate just having the opportunity to sit here and talk to you. And, you have a very calming demeanor and a calming spirit. And I think that that's amazing that you've utilized that in security for the time that you have. I can see where you've been beneficial, and I really appreciate you, Monique. You reached out to me at a time where I was really struggling, and I appreciate that. So I really do.
Well, just know that Paul and I keep praying for you and your family, especially your wife, to heal.
Yeah, thank you.
And, God bless you. As Spanish say, vaya con Dios. We all need to go with God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. There is something much different between someone who doesn't know God and someone who does. And yes, I know that's another thing too, another show. Or see, my goal would be to start making some YouTube videos myself on discipleship, because
Okay.
that's what is missing in today's church, especially the North American church. How do you take this Bible and apply it to your life? Wow.
Well, Monique, again, very similar to firearms. If I can be of any
Yes,
help with you
absolutely.
getting your YouTube channel off the ground, I would be more than happy to do that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All
God
right.
bless you, my dear brother.
God bless you too. Absolutely. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Let me sign off from here. You stay in the background. Don't get off or anything. Okay.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right. So let me just pull you out here. All right. And listen, there we go. She's out of there. Everybody say thank you to Miss Monique. That was very sweet of her to be on here today, and definitely appreciate her. So a subscriber to the channel, someone who has been very vocal. She comments on everything. She reached out, and I just wanted to bring her on and share her with you guys. She's an amazing woman. So everybody say thank you to Miss Monique. All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and get out of here, and I'll probably be back on in a little bit for a couple more pieces of content. So as always, hope you guys are staying safe. Keep your head on a swivel, watch your six, and be great. Okay, y'all be great.